Up next is the App of the Week segment. This is a segment dedicated to app demonstrations. Should you have an app that you would like to demonstrate for our listeners, feel free to send us the recording of such an app demo to contact us at blindandroidusers.com. And now for this week's episode, here's your App of the Week.
And now we turn to our final section this week, and it's our App of the Week. And Warren demonstrates another GPS app, WalkersGuide.
Hi, Warren here for Blind Android Users Podcast, and for episode 199 App of the Week, this is demonstrating WalkersGuide, WALKERS, capital GUIDE. This app is intended for those of us that would like to walk to places. This is coming to us from a German developer, Eric Scheibler. I probably mispronounced his name, but that's the app I'm demonstrating today. I am on the play page of the app, and the first thing I want to do, though, is to navigate to the About, so we'll hear the description of the app, and then we'll go back and open up the app and look at the UI and all the features that it has. I'll now find and tap on that About feature.
About this app heading.
I'll tap.
Google Play Store. WalkersGuide details. WalkersGuide details. Free navigational aid for the blind and visual impaired based on OpenStreetMap. WalkersGuide is a navigational aid primarily intended for blind and visual impaired pedestrians. It calculates routes and shows nearby points of interest. The project consists of an Android client and a server component. The latter performs the route calculation. The map data is provided by OpenStreetMap, a project to create a free map of the world. Main app features. Calculate routes optimized for blind and visually impaired users. Explore the layout of intersections. Show and track nearby POI. Simulate any street address. Import GPX files. Record your own routes. The application is fully accessible with Android screen reader talkback. Feel free to request new maps. Please visit https://www.walkersguide.org for more information.
And that's the description of the app. I'll now navigate back to the page and tap on Open.
Play Store. About this app heading in. Tell others what you think.
And now I'm going to tap on Open.
Open button. WalkersGuide. Main menu button out of list.
We're now in the menu eye of the app, and the first thing we heard upon opening was Main Menu, and at the same time I felt a vibration. Let's now navigate our way through the UI, and the first thing, as I indicated, is that Open Menu there on the top left corner. And now, moving from that and going right, here are the items that we encounter.
Compass 46 degrees northeast button. Compass 30 degrees northeast. Compass
Each
29
time you leave it
degrees
on this and you move your
Compass
phone,
19 degrees
it tells
north.
you what's
Compass
going on.
6 degrees
Now I'm
north.
gonna
Compass
move
15
to the
degrees
next.
north. Position accuracy 3 meters button. Position accuracy 2 meters. Position
also would
accuracy
keep moving.
3 meters. Position navigate.
And then next we have a text string that says Navigate, and then one last button on the top right corner
More options button.
is the More Options. We'll come back to both the main menu and the More Options. Let's move on from here, and going downwards we come across
Selected Navigate tab 1 of 2 in list 2 items.
So by default, we are in the Navigate tab, and that's selected, and it says 1 of 2. And then the next tab to that would be
Record tab 2 of 2.
It will be the Record tab. That's all that we have near the top part of the screen. And now moving to the bottom part of the screen, here's what we encounter. Toward that bottom, we have some buttons and tabs. Before we get to the first set of buttons, we got
12 meters, slight left.
And if
Arrived
I
at
turn
route
it,
start point.
it says arrive at my destination point because I've created a waypoint, and which is my home. And now moving from there,
Previous route point button.
there's the previous route point,
Next route point button.
then the next route point. And that's the last of those buttons. And now below that are 3 tabs. The first tab on the left is
Overview, tab, 1 of 3, enlist 3 items.
Overview. To the right,
Selected, Routes, tab, 2 of 3.
it's the Route tab. And to the right of that,
Points, tab, 3 of 3.
and the last tab here is the Points tab. Let's now navigate our way back to the top and look at that open menu.
Main menu, button out of list.
Let's tap on Main menu.
Plan route, 1 of 10, enlist 10 items.
So when we tap on Main menu, the first item that we encounter is Plan Route. In other words, if you want to navigate to an address, you need to tap on this and then type the address that you want to go to. I'll show you what I'm talking about, and then we'll come back and continue with the other items within the Main menu.
Plan route. Start 46.555 minus 120.380, button out of list. Start 46.555.
So by default, it's telling you where you're going to be starting at, and it sees where you're located at, and then moving.
Actions for 46.555 minus 120.380, button.
There's an Actions button there. If we tap on that Actions button, for example,
Pop-up window. Details in list.
we have details. In other words, it's going to tell you the details of that, the latitudes and longitudes and things like that, and elevation and all of that. And moving down,
Pinned, not checked, checkbox.
moving on,
Tracked, not checked, checkbox.
you could decide to track the location. Next,
Location simulated, not checked, checkbox.
you could decide to simulate it. Next,
Add annotation.
add a little annotation. Next,
Rename.
you can rename that if that's something you want to give it a name. For example, I'm at home, and I could rename that to say home. Next,
Add to collections.
or you could add it to the list of collections. Moving on,
Route planner.
and the last item here in this Actions menu,
Share coordinates.
that's the last item. Now I'm going to go back.
Plan route. Actions for 46.555.
All right, now moving on.
Destination 202 East Seattle Avenue, Moxie, button.
Now that's the address of the local post office here in my little town. I had tried to navigate to that place. So if this is something you want to go to, you could just leave it as, or if you want to enter a new address, you could just tap there and change that address. So basically, this will be where you type the to address.
Actions for 202 East Seattle Avenue, Moxie, button.
And basically, it's the same thing as the actions for the location destination where you're starting from. Next,
Off show via points, switch heading.
and moving on,
Options button.
we have options for that as well.
Back button.
And last item here
Calculate button.
is the calculate. I will go back.
Walker's Guide. Main menu button.
Let's go back to main menu because it took me out.
Plan route 1 of 10, enlist 10 items.
So that was the one we were looking at, was the plan route. And now moving on down,
Save current location 2 of 10.
you could save the current location that you're located at if you want to. Next.
Open shared location link 3 of 10.
Next.
Collections 4 of 10.
There's the collections that I was talking about. If you add something to the collections, it will be in this folder. Next.
History 5 of 10.
You tap there to see the history of places you've been or things like that. Next.
Miscellaneous heading 6 of 10.
We now come across the miscellaneous heading, and below that,
Settings 7 of 10.
we come across the settings. We'll come back to the settings, but let's look at the rest of the items here in the main menu.
Info 8 of 10.
And
User manual 9 of 10.
the last item here
Contact 10 of 10.
is to contact the developer. I've been hounding Eric like crazy, and oh my goodness. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the settings, and let's tap on settings and see what we've got.
Settings 7 of 10.
Here's settings, and I'll tap here.
Settings. Home address, nothing selected, out of list. Home address, nothing selected.
Here we heard home address, nothing selected. You could tap there to put in your home address. Moving on.
WalkersGuide server, heading.
And that's your server. Moving down.
URL https://ip.walkersguide.org/button.
Next.
Map North America button.
Map. And congratulations to Eric, because prior till now there was no North American maps, and I hounded him about it, and in no time at all we now have the North American. So if you're not in North America, you could tap here and choose your location. For example, if I tap here, just show you briefly.
Select map. Central Europe. Maps of
Because
Liechtenstein,
Central-
Switzerland, Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary in list.
Wow.
Northern Europe. Maps of Iceland, the Faroe Islands, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania.
You got the drift.
Western Europe. Maps of Ireland, Great Britain, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands.
Moving on.
Southern Europe. Maps of the Azores, Canary Islands, Portugal, Andorra, Spain, Monaco, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Kosovo, Serbia, Albania, Macedonia, Malta, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Cyprus, Turkey, and Georgia.
I'm learning a lot in my geography class. Next.
Checked North America. Maps
And
of
that's the
Canada,
one
the
that I've
USA, and
checked.
Mexico.
All right.
Central and South America. Maps of South Asia. Maps of Pakistan, India, Southern Zone, and Japan. Australia. Maps of Australia, Oceania, and Antarctica. Something missing. Button out of list.
And if your country is not there, there's something missing, you could tap on here and maybe contact him. Hey, put my area in there.
Cancel button.
And cancel is the last item. I'm going to go back.
Settings. Map North America button.
Now moving on from the map selection area, we come across
Off Prefer Translations, switch. If the map database has multiple languages stored for an entry, this setting ensures that the app outputs everything that's available in your set system language or, as a fallback, in English. For instance, the name of restaurants or attractions is occasionally available as an English translation.
moving on.
Public Transport heading.
We come across the public transportation, and below that,
Provider, none selected button.
providers. So if you tap here, you'll see the different transport providers that are available in your area. Moving on,
User Interface heading.
we now come across the user interface heading, and below that,
On Show Action button, switch. Alternatively, perform a long click to open the context menu.
in other words, it shows the options buttons, or if you don't want that, you could long press on something to activate. Now moving on.
Off screen remains active while the app is in use. Switch disables the auto lock screen feature during navigation.
And I do want to mention something here in passing, that one of the things that I didn't like about it, and I've complained to Eric about it, is the fact that if you shut off the screen, that voice guidance is not going to be heard. You have to leave the screen on, and that's the way you're going to be able to hear the verbal announcement of the streets as you move along. Now, moving on.
On Prefer the fused location provider for location determination. Switch. If enabled, you get more precise location fixes, especially within buildings. But on some devices it may cause accuracy problems during navigation. If so, you should disable the fused location provider here.
Moving on.
Shake intensity, medium, button, shake to refresh Where Am I dialog in Points tab.
In other words, when you shake it, it will tell you where you're located at. So shake it, baby, shake it, baby. Next,
Text-to-speech heading.
we now come across the text-to-speech engine, and below that we've got,
On Enable Speech Announcements, switch.
in other words, if you don't want to hear the speech announcement, that's verbal announcement telling you where to turn, you will turn this off. But what's the point, right? Moving on.
Distance Announcement Interval.
So the distance announcement interval is up to you as how you want to choose it to be. We've got
30 edit box meters for distance announcement interval.
We've got 30 meters, so every 30 meters it will tell you. We do not have Imperial support yet, and that's another thing I've been hounding Eric about. Moving on.
Off. Keep Bluetooth headphone connection alive. Switch. Some Bluetooth headphones go to sleep after some time of inactivity and their subsequent awakening produces a noticeable delay. Then the start of the next voice announcement may be truncated.
Moving on.
Import and export heading.
We come across the importation and exportation heading.
Import application settings button.
Next.
Export application settings button.
And the last item here in the settings is
Close button.
Close button. I'll tap on Close.
Walker's Guide. Main menu button.
We're now back to the main menu, and now I'm going to go to that button on the top right corner. That will be the More Options.
More Options button.
And I tap.
Pop-up window. Recalculate in list.
We've got Recalculate,
Jump to root point.
or you could jump to a route point.
Autumn. Skip to next checkbox.
So automatic, skip to next.
Show precise bearings, not checkbox.
And the last item here in More Options.
Show intersection structure, checkbox.
And I'll now go back.
Walker's Guide. More Options button out of list.
Now, let's go ahead and look at the last remaining tabs at the bottom. And of course, we're looking at the Overview is the first one.
Overview tab, 1 of 3 in list. Pin. Selected.
We're now in the Overview tab, and the first thing we heard was pinned. And that's basically making reference to the address that is above there, and that would be my home. And then moving to the right of it,
Track tab, 2 of 2.
is the Track tab. Below that,
Expanded, 0 profiles pinned in list.
I don't have any profiles that are pinned. Moving on down,
Pin profile button.
you could tap here to pin that profile.
Expanded, 0 points and routes pinned.
Next,
Pinpoint or route button.
next,
Here you can add point profiles and collections as well as points and routes for quick access out of list.
and that's the last item here from within that overview. The next tab is the one, of course, we've seen earlier, and that would be...
Routes tab, 2 of 3 in list.
We've
3
seen
items.
that because that was the first one that landed us on. And let's look at the last item here at the bottom. And that's the Points tab.
Points tab, 3 of 3.
I tap.
Points. Nearby. 0 point profiles heading out of list. Selected.
Moving on down.
Add point profile button.
You could add it. Next.
Please create at least 1 point profile to search for nearby points of interest.
And that's the last item there in the Points tab. And that's a quick overview of the Walker's Guide. I hope that we'll get the imperial measurement as well as the ability to shut off the screen while navigating. I tried navigating to my local post office with it and found out that I needed to leave the screen on in order to be able to navigate. And that concludes this quick demonstration of Walker's Guide. Thanks for listening.
I guess one of the good things about this is that at least the developer is quite responsive and talks to you, doesn't he? So you've managed to get some maps added to his server for North America.
Yeah, Eric is a nice guy, and actually he and I are planning on talking on Signal tomorrow. We were going to do that today, but I told him I'll be recording. So tomorrow he and I are going to be talking, and I'll talk about some of the concerns that I have, which he's already in the know of. Especially, I want to be able to have the screen shut off while I'm navigating. And right now, that isn't the case. And then some other things that we'd like to talk about. But yeah, he's very willing to work on it. It says it might take some time for him to get some of those things in place, but at least he knows where the pain points are. So we'll see what happens.
So as it stands at the minute, we've had 2 relatively new GPS apps on this week and last week's episode. Do you prefer Walker's Guide or Candle?
So I prefer Walker's Guide, and here's why. As I indicated in my demonstration of the Candle, you have to touch the screen to know where to turn. as to the Walker's Guide that would actually announce where to turn as long as your screen is on. So that's the difference. They both will vibrate when you get close to that turn and all of that. But with Candle, you have to touch the screen to know where you're at. So that's the difference, and it's something that he's also going to work on. So kudos to the Germans. They're trying to bring something, and I hope we get something good that will finally be recommending for people when it comes to navigational stuff. I mean, I like my Lazarillo, don't get me wrong. I know some people have problems with it, but I still like Lazarillo.
And have you used Candle or Walker's Guide outside yet? Have you used them in anger, in the wild, so to speak, or have you just had a bit of a look at them?
I used them out in the wild, and that's when I discovered that I needed to leave the screen on for
Yeah.
Walker's Guide in order to be able to hear those audible directions. And then with the Candle, I needed to touch it, and so it just wasn't. Remember, we talked about something touching something in the pocket, and people
That's right.
would be wondering.
Indeed. And you have to be careful touching the candle because you'll get wax and burnt fingers, don't you, as well? So you need to be careful about
Exactly, but it's lighting your path, though.
it. It is.
I like the name, Candle. It's the most appropriate.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
the dribbly, melty wax on your shoes by the time you get there.
exactly. Most especially if it has to be on.